Sthapya Chakshurudmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Pabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara to disciplic succession. So on this 17th day of November 2019, we're speaking at the Sunday Feast in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was asked to say something about Srila Prabhupada's gifts. What can you say? There's so much to say. We're sitting in one of his gifts. So I made a quick list here, and it's not at all exhaustive, but I'll try to speak a little bit about those things, and then we'll have a slideshow which is kind of a review of the Bhagavad Gita with some verses and illustrations. I have prepared a slideshow that I usually do on Gita Jayanti, which is coming up in 3 weeks, I believe. It's December 7th, the Advent of Bhagavad Gita. So the first gift that Srila Prabhupada gave is the holy name, the Hare Krishna mantra. Historically, when Srila Prabhupada came to America, Hare Krishna. I'll put it on pause. Hare, please take it outside. Hare Krishna. Do these work? Those air conditioners? Is it too loud with these fans? Maybe get those fans going too. Somehow they stopped. Look up. They stopped. See? All those are going. Anyway, I'll try to tolerate it. Hare Krishna. Oh, there we go. Okay, very good. So, when Srila Prabhupada began his movement in the West, you read the biography of Srila Prabhupada called Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, the first volume is called A Lifetime in Preparation. A Lifetime in Preparation. Srila Prabhupada came to America, New York, and he was 69 years old already. But he had met his spiritual master in 1922 at the age of 26. He first encountered Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Srila Prabhupada was a lifelong Vaishnava. He was carefully raised by his father, basically, in Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. He worshipped Krishna from a very early age. He would cross the street and he would look at the beautiful deity of Radha Krishna there, the family deity. Of course, famously, he had his own Rath Yatra when he was 5 or 6 years old. His father arranged for that, and he arranged it for the whole. Even then, Prabhupada was take charge. He was a manager, very authoritative, and his friends all got into line, and they had a beautiful little Rath Yatra. So then Prabhupada, of course, he was married before he met his spiritual master, and so he sometimes regretted, oh, I could have been just like the other sannyasis and full-time, but he had a business, he already had a child, so he was very responsible. He had a business, a pharmaceutical business that he was working at. At the same time, he was trying to spread Krishna consciousness, helped the Gaudiya Math, lived in Allahabad for 13 years, and helped establish a center there. So that, he was doing both for a long time. And then later on, he thought, oh, I'll become very wealthy. It was in his astrology chart that he could be as wealthy as Birla, and I'll use the money for Krishna. That was part of his idea. So he was working to keep that business going. But Krishna had another idea. He made the business fail, and when Prabhupada was in his 50s, he was giving more and more time and attention to the preaching, traveling, and so later on, much later, when he would speak to us and he had the Bhagavatam verses, and he would quote this verse. He said, I saw this verse as applying to me. It's in the 10th canto, latter part, I think Krishna speaking to Yudhishthira. And he says, Yasyaham lagunnami hadashe tadvanam shanai. He says, to those who I show my real mercy, I gradually take away all the material wealth. And then their family is disappointed with them, I kick them out. And they become, in other words, their family life is ruined because they become destitute. Krishna takes all the money away. In other words, Krishna pushes that person to become more renounced and therefore fully dedicate his life. And Prabhupada saw that applied to him. His business failed, and eventually he took Vanaprastha and sannyas, of course, famously. Came to America in 1965, September. And he looked around and he said, how are we going to ever impress upon this population who are so benighted and immersed in the four sinful activities of illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, meat eating? How will they, it's a prayer to Krishna, how will they understand the message? You brought me here, Krishna, for some purpose. Now please make my power of speaking adequate so that it will enter their hearts. Well, at first, Prabhupada was kind of wandering around. He came to uptown New York. I lived in Manhattan for a long time. And that's not where it was happening in 1965. It was happening downtown, but that's where Prabhupada was located. And whenever he got a chance, he would try to get people to chant Hare Krishna, Sankirtan. That was the thing. He was in the yoga studio, he got them going, and the dancing, and that was popular, but he wasn't able to preach because it was somebody else's yoga studio. He comes down to Lower East Side eventually. You know, he came down to the Bowery, which is like, you know, many of you don't know because you don't spend time in New York. At that time, in the 60s, the Bowery was where if you became homeless and destitute anywhere in America, like we have all homeless people, you know, you would go to the Bowery. You wouldn't stay where you are. That would be the place where you could find a little, you know, place to live. I mean, so there were all kinds of people wandering around who had nowhere to go. They were drinking wine. Where Prabhupada was living, it was a loft up a couple of flights of stairs. He was living with another young man who he thought was a good candidate for Krishna consciousness. And he was having kirtans there. He had a little half of a bongo drum. There's no madanga. He had half a bongo drum. He was beat and chant his heart out. You know, you hear some of these kirtans, I mean, Prabhupada's pure chanting is good. And there were all of these musicians around there, and they would come up. And one of those musicians was Michael Grant. You know, that is Mukunda Maharaj. He came there, and eventually he helped Prabhupada a lot. He was instrumental in getting the 26th Avenue replaced and like that. So there was some interest there because there was a lot of ferment. The LSD was dropping, people were hallucinating, the Beatles were getting into Indian philosophy, George Harrison, transcendental meditation. All of this was happening. Ravi Shankar music was becoming popular. So there was a big cultural infusion of Eastern thought and yoga and music and like that. So there was ferment. And so there were people who would come out of curiosity to see this new Swami that came back there. So that holy name, Prabhupada knew if they would just chant and hear a little bit, then Krishna from within, he would attract them. And sure enough, there was a small crew who began chanting regularly, at least kirtan. They would come and they were really dedicated. They saw Prabhupada's erudition. He would speak on Bhagavad Gita or his Bhagavatams, which he had, the original Bhagavatam. And gradually, when he came to 26th Avenue, he had his own place. After a while, he had a crew of committed followers, and soon initiated followers. That was the seed. So it all began with the chanting. Prabhupada knew this is the Yuga Dharma. This is the needs of the age where anybody, no matter how fallen, no matter how rejected in society, could become purified and could actually become God conscious and become committed bhakta. So the holy name is Prabhupada's foremost gift, and it's still going on. That gift didn't stop being given when Prabhupada left the planet. His followers are carrying on giving that holy name, and that's really our shelter. And that's why it's so important to chant regularly, both in kirtan and also japa. Lord Chaitanya showed the way. He himself, of course, had earth-shattering kirtans, no question about it. But he also told his followers to chant regularly at home, a regular number of rounds, beads, and he himself did it. He himself chanted japa. So that's the primary gift, and it's still going on, that gift. Now, the second, of course, is his books. The book gift of Srila Prabhupada. When Srila Prabhupada came to America, he had those first volumes of the first canto, what we call the Delhi Bhagavatams, the ones that he printed in New Delhi. Now, I know what it takes to print a book, you know, the typing, and in those days, there's no computers or anything. Everything had to be typed. Prabhupada typed with 2 fingers. He had this ancient manual typewriter. Just imagine, he typed all the first canto. You know how thick that is? It's a 1,000-page book. He typed every letter in there, including all the synonyms and everything. Didn't have any Devanagari, you know, there was nothing like that. But once he had those books in hand, he felt empowered to go to the West. He had some real ammunition. because there was a firm philosophical foundation to what he was teaching, to the chanting of the holy name. And this is the characteristic of Lord Chaitanya's movement. It's a perfect marriage of head and heart. Head and heart. Heart is the ultimate goal, is to have your heart overflowing with prema for Krishna. You know this phrase? We can all learn this tonight if you don't know it. Prema Pumarto Maha. I'll say, you say. Prema Pumarto Maha. Okay, now I'll just break it up. You can see what it is. This is part of a larger verse. But this is Lord Chaitanya taught. Prema, pure love for God. And I'm going to tell you what the difference between prema and kama is. This is a key understanding. So prema is this pure, unselfish love for God that doesn't wane, that just expands into an ocean of bliss. And he says pum is short for pumsa, means human being. Artha means goal, and maha means great. The great goal of every human being, of every living being, but is possible in human life, is to attain prema for Krishna, for the Supreme Personality of God. And that prema is not just a state of being, it's an active force. In other words, Prabhupada would always define it as pure devotional service. In other words, it's proved that you have prema by your eagerness to serve Krishna in any way you can. Hearing, chanting, and using your hands to serve the Lord in millions of ways. Like Ambarish, and your feet to walk to the temple. You know, your nose to smell the flowers and the incense offered to the Lord. Every sense, both active and knowledge acquiring, can be engaged in the service of the Lord. That's pure prema. So that's what Lord Chaitanya taught. That's the underlying reality of this movement. It's always aiming to that. It's not aiming for some materially tinged service to God. That's called cheating religion. It's kicked out at the beginning of Bhagavatam. Dharma projita kaikta votra. Here in the Bhagavatam, which is the philosophical basis of the whole Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya and Vaishnavas in general, all cheating religion is kicked out. Dharma projita, completely rejected. What is that cheating dharma? Materially motivated dharma. We're not going to pray to God for some material purpose. What does Lord Chaitanya teach? Nadanam nadadam nasundari kavitam bhajagatishika. I'm not praying to you for wealth, for followers, for a beautiful spouse, for even good education. Nothing like that. And not even liberation. Not even liberation. Because he says birth after birth. Then what is he praying for? Who can say? Huh? Yeah, but in this verse, ahoitaki means selfless devotional service, without material cause or motivation. Birth after birth. That's what he's praying for. This is the standard of this movement. And this is what Prabhupada gave, and this is what Prabhupada showed. Great gift is the highest conception of Dharma. He's giving it out freely by speaking and through his books. His books are great treasures. Prabhupada explained to us, especially as the years wore on, those magical 70s. Prabhupada was already 70, when he started the movement, he was already 70 years old. And he said, I can go away at any time, but the books will remain. Vapu and Vani. Vapu means the form, Certainly when Prabhupada was on the planet, we all, relished when we can his personal service, obviously. I was fortunate to see him several times, to meet him one time when he gave me the Brahman initiation in Vrindavan. This was just Krishna's arrangement. But the most important association is through his words. He's always present through his words, just as Krishna is. When you read the Bhagavad Gita, you are in the same position as Arjuna. It's simply a question of your receptivity, of your surrender, how you're here and you're receiving the instruction. Arjuna received it as heart and soul. And what did he say? Savam etad vritam manya yatman varisi Keshava. O Keshava, I accept as truth everything that you're speaking to me. That's how we receive the Gita. So we can associate with Srila Prabhupada, with Shukadev Goswami, with Rupa Goswami, with all of these great acharyas, by hearing their words, reading their words, trying to put them into practice in our lives, and giving them to others. So his books are the greatest treasure, a compendium of the essence of all Vedic truth. Now, the other thing, very important thing that he gave that is not often listed is his own association. Because without Srila Prabhupada personally being there, the books may have been there, the Hare Krishna mantra was already there, we had Allen Ginsberg chanting, But without Srila Prabhupada's presence as the example of the pure devotee, and his, if I may use the word, channeling Krishna, and attracting people to come and devote their lives, the movement would have never happened. It would have never taken off. As Prabhupada pointed out, the Bhagavad Gita had been in English translation for several hundred years. Because, the British, of course, were ruling India, and some of them were scholars, and they saw this important book they translated. There were, you may not know, there was a group of American writers called the Transcendentalists. Ralph Waldo Emerson, Thoreau was part of it, and they read the Bhagavad Gita. On the back we have one of the quotes, I think, from them, appreciating the Bhagavad Gita. But they didn't become devotees. The book was there, but it wasn't being given as it is, with the priceless commentary Prabhupada was given. Now, where is his commentary coming from? You may note it, if you look in your Bhagavad Gita next time, look at the beginning. The dedication is to Baladev Vidyabhushan. Baladev Vidyabhushan, the fact that he's named Vidyabhushan, he has the ornament of knowledge. It means he's very, very learned, disciple of Vishnu Chakravarti. And he wrote a commentary in Bhagavad Gita. He also wrote a commentary in the Danta Sutra. So this is the, Srila Prabhupada was looking at that commentary, taking out the essence of it, giving it to us, translating the verses that are quoted there. He's relying on the whole parampara. He's giving all of that to us in his books. And all of his books are like that. He has, I know how he produced them. He had books with translations of those commentators, as well as his own spiritual master. So his books are valuable treasures. They've been translated into 80, 90 languages, some of them around the world. In India, they're distributed by the millions. That's where most of the book distribution is going on, majority in the movement now. Literally millions and millions of books going out. And Prabhupada's words are changing the face of the world. They really are. This is they are going to continue for time immemorial. So by his association, his books, the holy name. Now, the association of the devotees. Prabhupada said, and he set up this movement in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Society means a place where you come together and associate for a given purpose. He pointed out that this is universal. You'll have business associates. You'll have the association of the drunkards. You have some club that you go to and you drink. People want to associate for a certain purpose, to facilitate a purpose. So this society is created for the purpose of engendering devotion. In other words, sadhu sangha, sarva shastra kore, lava mata sadhu sange, sarva siddhi hoy. Is anyone familiar with this particular verse? Some of you know. So this is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Why repeat it? The emphasis. Association with sadhus. Sadhus means apichit sarada bhajadimam manyabhak. Krishna says, those who are serving me without deviation, even if they commit a little error, you should still see them as sadhus, if their whole life is bhajan or bhakti. So, I'm not going to go into the sadhu sangashtaka, but I'll tell you where it is, if you want to look it up. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, chapter 25, beginning text 20, Lord Kapila Dev, his first teachings to his mother is the importance of associating with sadhus. That is where this phrase satsang comes from. Satsang means sadhu sangha. So how you associate, who you associate with, what you associate with, music you associate with, food you eat, all of this affects your consciousness. And if you absorb the modes of nature, if you're associated with music in the modes, there's all kinds of music in the modes of nature, that will heavily affect your consciousness. But if you come to the Krishna temple and you hear the kirtan, we're glorifying this, this song we sang. It's commemorating what is called the it's like how many hours? Lord Chaitanya was worshipped as God. He revealed himself to be Krishna at that point. And all of that worship by Advaita and Sanjaya and all of that is a description of that going on the bank of the Ganges. A very idyllic situation with the moon up and everything. It's remembering that. So that will affect you in another way. The whole idea is that we have to choose our association very carefully. And when we choose that association that is furthers our Krishna consciousness, then we can progress. So Prabhupada gave us facility. This temple which has been put together and maintained at great effort under Prabhupada's instructions, is facilitating us coming together, seeing Krishna, chanting the holy name, hearing about Krishna. So that's the whole institution is a great gift, and there's temples everywhere. Faith. There's this passage in the 19th chapter, Madhya Lila, Lord Chaitanya is teaching Rupa Goswami. And he talks about the Bhakti Lata Bija. Some of you have heard of this Bhakti Lata Bija. Bija means seed, Lata means creeper, and Bhakti means devotional service. So we need to get that seed of the creeper of devotion planted in our heart so we can cultivate it and water it. And that seed, it comes by the mercy of Krishna and Guru. Ramande Brahmate Kon Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pade Bhakti Lata Bij. This is the verse in that chapter 19. And this is more or less the beginning of his instructions to Rupa Goswami. So what does that bij consist of? That bij consists of the words of the spiritual master entering the heart and a seed of faith in the holy name, in the teachings, in the process of devotional service in Krishna. That little seed of faith needs to be watered, and it grows into a luscious plant of devotion, of bhakti. So that faith was planted by Srila Prabhupada through all of his efforts, by initiations, by the temples. He would, and those who he empowered could also implant that faith. It wasn't just him personally. If you're sincerely practicing and you're experiencing the benefits of Krishna consciousness, and you realize how important it is for people to be Krishna conscious because you've experienced your revolution in your own life, then you become empowered to also plant that faith. And that faith will maybe first manifest in some commitment. Someone, okay, I'll come to the temple, I'll visit, or I'll take that book, oh yeah, I'll chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. If they just say Hare Krishna, their whole life has changed. Just one time. This is the power of the Holy Name. So faith is a very important aspect of what Srila Prabhupada gave us. Because without the pure devotee, it's very difficult to get the faith, unless you have a good example of these teachings. Because the teachings are like far out, I mean, just to think about it, things that we accept to be true, even though we don't directly experience it. But we believe that, because we experience some of it by the chanting. But we have this whole parampara, which Srila Prabhupada is the shining example of, out of great compassion and effort, taking the trouble to give us a chance to be Krishna conscious. So that faith is a great gift. The temples of Krishna, what more need I say, all over the world, there are devotees gathering. And now with the internet, if you press the right buttons, if you press the wrong buttons, you go to hell. If you press the right buttons, you'll be in Vaikuntha. You can attend the Mangal Artik in Vrindavan every morning. Or maybe it's the evening, in the morning in Vrindavan, but you understand what I'm talking about. The idea is that there's tremendous access. And that is available, these temples of Krishna are available because of Prabhupada's great effort. You read this story of how the adventure. Yuvraj Swami is writing this book about the Bombay temple, and now how it came to be, the Jew temple. Some of you may know the stories. So much difficulty getting the land. The guy they bought it from had cheated so many people out of it. He was a powerful man in this society. He had some newspapers, political influence. Prabhupada was just this lone warrior, with a couple of bedraggled devotees who, to try to live in India, they would all get sick right away. And so, but he promised Radha Rasabihari that he would build the temple. And so as soon as he got the land, he moved the deities on there. He was very smart. Because in India, they'll hesitate to move the deity. Anyway, it's an incredible story, and Yuvraj Swami was right in the middle of it. And he's finishing up this book now, and it's going to be an extraordinary book. But that was the trouble Prabhupada took to establish these temples. Now, along with the temples, of course, comes the sadhu. That's a big part of the temple, isn't it? Whenever you have the temples, you have festivals, you have the Sunday festivals, and there's prasadam because the deities are there. Have you ever noticed, if you study the Guru Vashtaka, you'll see that it starts out, how the spiritual master is just like a cloud of mercy putting out the fire of the burning of material life, But it doesn't mention anything about bhakti there. It doesn't mention the next verse. Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nritya Gita. He's doing it by spreading Sankirtan, the holy name. But not only that, he's also establishing temples. Establishing temples, and he himself is showing how to clean them. There's a famous pastime in LA. Prabhupada got down on his hands and knees and showed how you clean the floor. He's showing. Perfectly illustrating that verse, that third verse. And then as soon as you have the temples and you have the deities, next is prasad. Chaturvadashi Bhagavad Prasad. This is practically how the movement grows and maintained, right, in those four verses. And then, of course, it goes internal. Inside, he's worshipping RADHAKRISHNA in an intimate way. And that very wonderful. The Mangalarti is very important. So you have the prasada with the temples, and then the festivals. Take it outside, right? You read about the first Rath Yatra in LA, in San Francisco, excuse me. They had a flatbed truck, and they didn't know how long the procession would be. It ended up being a 7-mile-long procession down to the bay. But it was very successful. Everyone had a great time. They've been carrying on ever since 1967. It's over 50 years now, every year. And gradually it grew. I was there for the first LA Rath Yatra, the first 2 or 3 LA Rath Yatras. And the in-charge there was resisting like anything. No, Rath Yatra is a San Francisco thing. We don't have enough, devotees, we don't have time. But Jayananda was there. Jayananda was actually terminal with his final disease. But even though he was known as Mr. Rath Yatra, he had been empowered by Prabhupada to build the carts and to fire up the devotees, and everything. Every time the Rath Yatra would happen in '67. And then there was that first New York Rath Yatra. Great victory for Prabhupada. 1976, 10 years after it was founded in New York, in this little storefront on Lower East Side, And then 10 years later, he's riding down Fifth Avenue on these magnificent carts with thousands of people and hundreds of devotees. It was wonderful. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there at the time. But, so festivals everywhere, not just Rath Yatra. I'm sure you had the Govardhan Festival, you got Nafti here, right? Govardhan is also here, Puri Govardhan, And so every few weeks, practically, sometimes in the August, you have so many festivals, Janmashtami, Balaram, Vyasa Puja, they're coming up. So the festivals are a wonderful time. Devotees can come together, work together, beyond the call of duty, sort of ordinary thing, and break out of your your habitual, devotion, and reach new levels of devotion because you're all working together to glorify Krishna. So festivals are another great gift. The holy dhams, developing Vrindavan and Mayapur. Prabhupada worked so hard. Those dhams are available. We can go there, we can stay there sometime, take shelter of the holy dhams where every blade of grass reminds you of Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. And I have a few more here, the spiritual world. How would we even know what the spiritual world is, or that we should go there, how to go there for Srila Prabhupada. And Krishna and all his associates, Prabhupada introduced us to the personality of Godhead. He gave us the revolutionary idea that you can know him personally. In the West we have the idea of God as the vengeful God, The motivation is fear. If I don't do the right thing, I'm going to go to hell forever. Okay, all right, I'll do it, But that's not a very healthy, that's not bhakti. That's not bhakti. And people eventually reject that. Nobody wants to be fearful all the time. And so, but Prabhupada introduces to this, wonderful, loving, lovable person who's the absolute person who is ready to help us be Krishna conscious, Krishna, and all of his associates. So that's a wonderful gift. What to speak of Lord Chaitanya and all his associates. Is Krishna as well, but we're practically contemporaries. Have you ever thought of how rare it is and wonderful, not just to have a human birth, and not just to have a human birth in which you're interested in God consciousness, but to be practically a contemporary of Lord Chaitanya? You know how often Lord Chaitanya appears? He only appears as often as Krishna appears. That's once every 8,640,000,000,000 years. Once in a day of Brahma, 24-hour day of Brahma. And here it is just 5,000 years ago. How rare is that? It's like, let's cash in the lottery ticket, okay? Let's take advantage of this great gift. There's going to be a 10,000-year blip in this Kali Yuga, and we're just at the beginning of it. So we don't want to see the end of it. We want to go back to Godhead in this lifetime. But the point is, we're very, very fortunate